Welcome to Your Iconic Image. If you want to take control of your image and be a power player in your space, then this is the show for you. Here we will arm you with tools and information to help you grow your brand on purpose. I'm your host, Marlana Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Now let's dive into today's episode. Rob Napoli of Rise Up Coaching is a continuous learner who is on a mission to find the best whiskey bar in Manhattan. He is the host of the Necessities of Entrepreneurship podcast and is an entrepreneur, speaker, and the author of The Social Soul. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So we're going to talk today about mastering our personal brand. So I'm just going to let you have the floor and dive into it. How do we do it?
That is a great question. There's quite a few different ways to do it, right? And I think it really depends on, let's first define what like your personal professional brand is, right? And that is that many of us live with kind of two sides of our brand, meaning we have the personal, which is a lot of times like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever. Then we have a professional, which is usually just like LinkedIn, right? And we try to keep these things separated. For a long time, that was a big goal. But now in a hyper-connected digital age, it's no longer about one or the other. And some people can, and some people do. But for most of us out there, really, they've become a blended thing. And it's because we want to be treated like humans, both personally and professionally, right? Especially in sales and marketing, things like that. And so how do we do that? And it's kind of, that's why I call it the social soul in the book, is thinking about how do we be authentically us online? And so that's where the idea of the personal professional kind of to tie together and start. And yeah, you may throw pictures of your kids on Facebook showing off, your kids, but that's not what you want to throw on LinkedIn. Maybe you could if you want to. There's nothing wrong against it. But you might have LinkedIn is like more about your professional journey and failures and wins and losses in the workplace versus Facebook at home. You can have that kind of delineation, but understand that those lessons can carry over. And some of the stuff that you learn at home, you can share here. It doesn't necessarily be, oh, this is one thing and this is the other and they're completely separate. I can't cross over content.
So and don't you think too, let me just ask you this. Don't you think too that because the world is so social and we do have all of these different platforms, that it's important to show up consistently on each platform so people aren't getting, okay, on LinkedIn, she appears this way, and on Facebook, she appears completely different.
Yeah.
There's got to be some kind of a
yeah, I mean, it comes to the fact that if you go into a call or a meeting and you're not Googling the person you're talking with and meeting with, like, who are you and what are you doing? Right. So first, there's got to be some consistency. Consistency is relative. Not everyone needs to post daily. Not everyone needs to post weekly. Not everyone needs to post monthly. But you can't just have a profile and never post and be like, well, I'm on the LinkedIn, there's got to be something there. And if you're, the whole idea of sales nowadays is to be human, right? And salespeople, before they get on the phone with you, they're going to know not just what you do professionally, they're going to know what you do personally. They're going to know if you have kids, if you like to go golfing, unless you have every one of your profiles locked. And then I would say, how many people do we know in common? And I would go look and see if I know somebody, like, hey, what can you tell me about, Marlana? What can you tell me about Rob? What can you tell me about Rachel? What can you tell me about James? And so I tell you on a call with you, I want to know something about you. Right. And so that's why it's important to have consistency across channels. That's why it's important to show up. And you don't have to. I'm really against taking the same piece of content and blasting it out across all the channels. I think you need different channels have different tones of voice that you want to have. So you kind of want to tailor. It could be the same image or video, but the way you present it and the text that goes along with it should not be copy paste. Because I don't follow Rob. If I follow him on Instagram, why would I follow him on Twitter? Right. And if you want them to follow your different platforms, then you want to make sure that your platforms are a little bit different.
Yeah, that makes sense. And is it more about, like you said before, it's not about necessarily showing up every day, but I feel like we do have to be consistent and show up. Because the people that seem to be showing up at least are the ones that are getting the attention. Maybe they're not the best at what they do, but they're there.
So, yeah, I mean, that's such a great point.
And there was a hesitation, so I know there's stuff there.
Yeah, no, it's this like, because there is something to be said that they're always there, but why are you there? What is the reason for being there? I mean, I have a bunch of, I'm like an early adopter of new platforms. Like when Marco Polo came out, boom, Snapchat, boom, Instagram, boom, hashtag. I was like, people made fun of me for being the hashtag king. People made fun of me for documenting, one time before I moved up to Italy, I was kind of playing my final year of football and I wanted to move positions to play one last year at a different position. So I dropped 45 pounds for that season. I documented that whole journey and it's like, oh, you're the guy taking this pic to the gym. And I'm like, yeah, but it's for a reason. It's accountability. It's both for myself and for others. And, I think being there is one thing, but why are you there? Just to have a LinkedIn because everyone says you should have it versus I'm there. I've put some thought into my profile. I've shared a little bit. I've engaged a little bit. Maybe it's once out of a blue moon, but I'm there and I show up. Right. And the best example I can use of this, right? Clubhouse. And even in my book, I write about Clubhouse. And like, I already wish I could rip that out because I think Clubhouse is already dead. And that's how fast. And I wrote this book in the summer. Like I finished the book in the summer of this year. 2021. So 7 months ago. But Clubhouse almost got broken when Elon Musk jumped in a room and did a thing. And Clubhouse rooms could only handle 20,000. And it was crazy to have a room of 20,000 people. It's just a whole wild. And the fact that people are actually like muting themselves and like, granted if you're not on stage, but that whole thing. And if you think about it, why, for whatever anyone thinks about Elon Musk, why are people like Elon Musk or Dave Portnoy, the CEO of Barstool Sports, not CEO anymore, president, right? Erica Nardini's CEO, but why are they so popular? It's because they show up on social and they talk to generations versus the VP or CEO of Johnson & Johnson that no one knows about. Granted, they might not need to be there, but why is Elon Musk there? Why does he show up? He doesn't need to be there. He does it because he knows that if he's there, Gary Vaynerchuk, same thing. If he's there, he creates brand ambassadors and earns longer lifetime value of customers by catching them at 15, 16, 17. Whether they come and work for you because they're best and best talent, or they buy a Tesla. Mm-hmm. You're creating longer lifetime value, brand engagement, brand awareness, and brand loyalty at a much earlier space and place. And so many people are missing out. The other side of this, though, is like, we don't need more freaking influencers, right? Don't go on and try to be an influencer. You got to go on and be authentic. And if that's showing up once a month, then that's showing up once a month. Back to your original point, kind of bring this full circle. You have to be there and you have to know why you're there. And you have to know why you're there to engage. And in what way do you want to engage with each platform? Otherwise, it's a waste of time and a waste of space and a waste of your energy.
Agreed. And a friend of mine had said once, do you want to be an influencer or a person of influence? Because there's a big difference.
You'll never believe this. That file just randomly showed back up on my desktop and it's now downloading. And it's a very big file. And so I just paused it and literally have no idea. Like I haven't touched anything. I've been talking to you for the last 10 minutes. That file just reappeared on my desktop and started downloading and it just sucked the bandwidth. So I apologize. I think we are back to stable.
It's the people that were talking in your ears telling you, don't worry about it. I got your file. It's coming.
Man, this is crazy. So I apologize for that quick little craziness waiting. So I should be good. Everything's paused. Should be good.
Okay. So let's.
I'm like sweating right now because of everything. Like, For the audience, I don't know if we're going to cut this now, but for the audience out there, right before this call, I thought I lost a file, was freaking out, came to the call 2 minutes late. And Marlana was like, hey, it'll be fine. You'll figure it out. Cool. So I shut everything off, focus on the conversation. In the middle of the conversation, the file pops back up and starts downloading. Haven't touched anything, haven't done anything in the last 10 minutes other than talk to y'all. And now I'm sweating again because I feel bad in the middle of this, all this craziness. But that is serendipity, that is karma, that is letting things go and letting go of things you can't control, which is a big lesson around building your personal and professional brand and driving things across social, being authentically you. It's that you can't control. The biggest fear is that what are other people going to say and think? You can't control that. Right. You can control what you post and you can control how you respond. I talk about attitude and effort all the time. And I think there's that, was it John Barrows? Now it's like EAT is this new thing. It's effort, attitude, and I can't remember what the T was. But anyways, I always talk about attitude and effort. Yeah, but attitude and effort, and it's the idea behind it and controlling is that if you have a great attitude and you give great effort, good things are going to happen. And when you do that and you can control those things, you control your response as well. You're not going to control what others do, but you control how you respond. So that's taking that breath. It's having the attitude to be positive and the effort to take a breath when you're mad. Step back and say, hey, okay. And then you figure out how to respond. Control the narrative backwards or back to the others.
So let me ask you this, because you touched on something that I always tell people, and it's that we can't control what other people think of us. However, we can steer the conversation. So how, in your opinion, do you steer the conversation when you're building a brand?
Whose podcast was it? So I'm going to answer your question, but I had a weird realization yesterday. I pulled up my Spotify to listen to music for the first time in a while, and I put on like a new country station, and I realized I hadn't heard any of the songs that were playing. And I've realized this is not to sound pretentious, but I've been so consumed by consuming content for the last 4 or 5 months that when I have my headphones in, I'm listening to a podcast. I literally today, I'm still 2 weeks behind, but I'm almost caught up. Like on all the podcasts that I have and listen to and follow, like I'm almost caught up. And I just consistently consume content and not music. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I can't remember whose it was, but it was talking about, the whole phenomenon that everyone wants to see you succeed until you succeed. Once their perception of you is that you're successful, they start wanting to tear you down because they want to be you. Right? So to your point of not controlling how they think, how to control that narrative is you're not going to, because they're going to either be with you or against you. And it's tough because if you want to really create yourself as a person of influence, you have to stand for something. And the minute that you stand for something, you will isolate someone just by nature of it. And we fear more about those who we isolate than we do those that buy in. And so if you want to control kind of that narrative, post content that's meaningful to you. Post what you feel is authentic and valuable and drives value into others. And that's all you can do. Because if people are going to agree or disagree. What most people don't do, though, is they don't lean into the uncomfortableness of the disagreement. Hey, great point. Would you mind having a conversation for 5 minutes about that further? Learn. Don't be so bullheaded that, well, I'm right, you're wrong, or I'm the influencer and you're not. Because Zig Ziglar, and I love this quote, and most people don't laugh at it. I've done this multiple times. Some people do. But what is an expert? Former, spurt, water spout. You literally are somebody who talks about spurting out information in the past, right? If you really want to be a person of influence, you need to stop being an expert and being a forward thinker, meaning you're talking about things to come. You're taking chances on saying, hey, I think this might happen based on my experience of 20 years. This is what I think the next big thing is, or this is what I think is going to happen.
Mm.
And for many of us, we don't want that. We're too afraid to put our names out there. If you want to control that conversation, the only thing you can do is just post meaningful and valuable content that you feel is you.
Do you
And
think,
let it ride.
let me ask you this. Do you think in there with what you just said that when you start to put yourself out there and you start to have people follow you and things like that, and you start to stand for something, if somebody challenges that in a way or comes up and it has something to say that's the opposite or questions you or anything like that, how much of that do you think is a little imposter syndrome coming up that, oh, well, if they challenge me and I either don't have the answer, or if I shift my position at all, then people are going to think that I'm not what I was.
Yeah. All the time. Imposter syndrome hits everybody. I talk about it in my book. I talk about it all the time. I had it last episode of the year with my twin brother was talking about it, and how, I continue to deal with it. In the first episode of this year, I talk a little bit about how I deal with imposter syndrome. I still deal with it. There's days I'm like, yeah, I'm meant to be part of this conversation. There's days like, how the hell am I in this conversation? Why am I lucky enough to be in this room? There's the days like, wait, is everything I'm saying a lie? Did everything I just write wrong? You're going to go through that. And one of the biggest things I can say when people challenge you is you have to look at your motivation, right? And there's two types of motivation, internal and external. We look at that as a hit to our external motivation. And we look at engagement as external motivation to keep posting more. And the minute that starts to turn negative, that dwindles the fire of external motivation. External motivation is it's limited. It's meant to spark an internal fire. But if that internal fire, that internal motivation is not there, nothing will ever carry. And so, from an imposter syndrome standpoint, you have to kind of look at that and be like, okay, cool. This is, again, I can control how I respond. I don't know the answer to this. Well, what the hell do you have at your disposal? Google. You can go find out the answer. You can also say, hey, great point. Would love to discuss it. Let me come back to you. Guess what? It's a comment. You don't have to respond right away. You can take 24 hours, go do your due diligence, and come back to it. Or, hey, great point, XYZ. Or, hey, that's something I'd love to discuss with you further. It's a great point. Too long to put in a comment thread. Would love to maybe have a conversation. There's all kinds of ways you can circle back to that. Mm-hmm. The key here is you don't have to freaking know everything. It is absolutely okay if you do not.
Right.
Stop trying to.
Yeah. And I think we have to stop taking everything as an offense. If somebody questions us, it's not an offense. Or, and I think too, so many times we listen with the intent to respond and not to hear what they're actually saying.
That is huge. Like, that right there is a huge nugget, right? Listen with the intent to hear.
Understand, yeah.
Right? Versus listen with intent to respond, which you're right. Like, that kind of knocked me back for a second because I was already thinking about my response versus like hearing a comment. It's like, holy shit. Like, right there is something so poignant that it's, you forget to just hear. And that when you post something out to the world, you got to hear the world. And in fact, if you don't know where to start and create, start being an engager. In fact, the best thing to do to be a person of influence is not to create content. It's to engage with content. Right? Because engaging, you're allowed to go and ask questions, delve deeper, start conversations, be more of a spark to a flame that's going. Like, you're actually, it's like you're blowing oxygen onto a flame of things that are happening. You don't have to post all the time. Some people don't want to. Some people don't want to do videos. Cool, don't. Go engage on 10 posts a day. Spark conversation. And then see who else is commenting on it. That's what people don't do. So I can't believe salespeople don't do enough of it. I see a lot of sales influencers talk about this, so this is nothing new. But say you posted something great, and I commented, hey, blah, 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 love this, love that. I'm going to go through and look at all those people who are commenting and seeing if people are, I'm throwing out those as like, hey, great post, it's cool. But I'm looking at who's commenting, meaningfulness. I might go look at who likes it and see if any of them like my ICP. And then I might reach out, hey, great comment on the post. I had similar feelings, would love to have a chat, but like, what better way to start organic conversations than use the fact that you're engaging in other content to do that and make that full circle, right? So you don't even have to create content at all to become kind of a thought leader, to build your personal brand. You don't have to even, you could create no content for a month and gain 1,000 new followers just by engaging with the right ecosystems and places.
And with that, I think that's a great segue into, I know something that you talk about, and that's building a value-added network. So dive into that a little bit and tell us what that is and how we do that.
So there's 100 different ways. There's 100 different ways. I think the big thing for me is thinking about who do you want in your network and why, right? So my network should be a blend of things of people I want to learn from, people that are friends and I work with, family, obviously, and then people that I want to work with, right? That are my clients. And that is where most of us tend to fail, is really driving that. And that's where, if you want to build that kind of value-added network, like forget the personal brand side of that. God's its own thing. That's cool. I think where you really win, and that could be 100 or 1,000 or 5,000, is building a value-added network. Is that when you go through your feed on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, you're seeing content that you actually care about. And yeah, that could be, that your brother is having a baby and checking in. Like, that's part of that, right? But erasing toxicity, erasing things that are just mindless consumption of people doing things that are funny, and granted, you need that outlet. So I'm not saying take all that out and be, it's kind of like when someone tells you, like, you see those infographics about how to be successful, like stop doing Netflix, stop playing video games, like boom, boom. You need those in your life. Don't take out things that bring you joy, but know when it becomes mindless consumption, and you need to have that filter. And so when you're building that value-added network and you're looking at who those are, like, search for people. And don't just search for people because they're the CEO of a company. Search for, if your ICP is CEOs, search for the CEOs that are active on LinkedIn, that you see that are engaging in conversation, that you see that are engaging on Instagram, right? I don't follow, if I look at some of these big actors and stuff, and everyone follows them, and I'm like, I'll follow them if they engage with the community. If I see them actually commenting and posting back, then I'll follow them. Otherwise, if you're just posting and wanting people to like it just for your personal brand, to be an influencer in the space, like, cool, I can look up on Google you whenever I want if something happens. I'm not following your Instagram page. That's a waste of time for me. Right? So when you're building this, like, go look for those that are active. LinkedIn actually tells you, it gives you all the activity in the last 90 days. If you go and they have no activity, and there's no activity section, it's because they're not on the profile. So why would you even waste your time trying to reach out to them so you can get a KPI number, so you can have one more person that's a connection? So before you even start creating, like, think about who's in your network, and then purge it. Purge your network. I went through and deleted like 2,000 people because they weren't the right fit for me, because I was a recruiter before I did the startup world. So, like, I had all these people that wanted something from me when I was posting my jobs. Now I'm no longer posting my jobs. Not impactful or valuable to them. And then not impactful or valuable to me. Get them out of your network and leverage that so that you have a fresh look, because the more people you have that are not engaging, the less reach you have if you want to be a person of influence. It also means you're going to see less of the stuff that actually could be beneficial to you because you have all this other noise in front of it. Understand that being a person of influence, building a brand, or just building a value-added network is all about taking care of that. It's not about having a big network. It's about having a engaged network that you take care of.
Yeah, it's interesting that you just brought up that point, because I think that's where some people get nervous. Oh my gosh, I'm going to delete 2,000 people. And, then it's going to look like I don't have as many connections or followers or blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, you want the right people and then serve those people. So it's better to serve 10 that are your people and that are engaged than 10,000 that follow you for nothing.
I'd rather have 100 brand loyalists than 1,000 brand exciters, right? Like people who are like, oh, cool, I'll follow you. I want those loyalists. I want those people that are there and are bought in. And because the influencer society has screwed with us so much that it's all about how many people. And at one of my jobs, we hired an influencer to run a campaign. And across all his platforms, I think his reach was 10 million. And we were kind of starstruck by getting this guy to do this, and the cost, I bartered on it and was able to get a decent cost for a post, and he went with it. And hey, I just got this big time influence with this thing. Did the thing, posted, and then we didn't drive a single in detail. And I went back and looked at it, and then I decided to go one step deeper, and I went to all his platforms, and I started looking who engaged. And when I started realizing he was actually engaging and the types of comments he was getting, I realized that his network was overinflated with a lot of followers, but very low engagement. And the engagement that the influencer had was not our target market.
Yeah.
And that was a big swing and a miss. Right. And so we were so enamored that it's about the amount of people that follow us versus having a truly dedicated network. And I have 8,000 on LinkedIn, but only 1,000 something in Instagram, and there's people that are bigger. And but I have a pretty good group on Instagram, and it's starting to grow. In fact, what's funny is I've traveled a lot. I have a lot of friends. Like I deleted everyone that was not an ICP and not friends or family, and I had like 850 friends and family because I've traveled, I've coached and played football so many places. I was kind of like, shoot, okay. So like, when I know that my number is 1,200, I know that I have right now it's about 600 friends and family, and 600 are my like ICP, right? On Instagram, so like I know what my Instagram weight is, right? And so you have to think about those things, and like that's why it's so important. Like I give very real, specific examples because it's really easy to have fluff and overthink it versus who the F actually cares. If people are engaging and I feel good about what I'm posting, that's all that should matter.
Okay, let me ask you this. You said, let's say your Instagram is split between your ideal client and friends and family. So when you post, who are you posting for?
It's a great question. Both. I mean, different times, right? All my reels are really for the ICP. I usually try to do like one family type post a week that's more geared towards like, but see, Instagram is my place that shows Rob as Rob and Rob as speaker, right? It is the meshing point.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook is all friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn is all business. Instagram is my mesh point.
Mm-hmm.
So when I post, and I share family stuff and life events on LinkedIn to an extent, right? Because I want people to see the good and the bad. I talk about failures and all these things. But Instagram is that channel that truly meshes. And so I split it. And so like the reels are dedicated towards the ICP. One post per week is more for my family. I do stories, and it's a little bit of both. Sometimes it's like cool stuff I'm doing. I mean, I live in New York, and I get to have some really cool experiences walking around and what you see on the subway. And sometimes it's an event I'm at or traveling, or it's back home on the farm. Like I show a little bit of all of it. So if you want to know the one platform to follow Rob on to see the full picture, it's Instagram. Mm-hmm. And that's not, it's not even my biggest channel.
Right.
Right. But that's because that's the channel I choose to have both lenses there. Mm-hmm. And so when I post, I know who I'm posting to, and I'm very strategic on when I post those things and to who and what days those come out and all that stuff to maximize the engagement in the eyeballs.
Do you think that by doing that, by posting the professional and the personal, that actually gives us the most well-rounded brand?
Yes, and that's why it's my favorite channel. Even though LinkedIn's my biggest, LinkedIn drives. I love LinkedIn. I love my LinkedIn family. I have an amazing network on LinkedIn, and I have been so thankful for the amount of opportunities that I've found, developed, and created because of LinkedIn. But Instagram's my favorite channel because it is all of me. And this is where I talk about mastering my personal and professional. You don't have to have it all on, it doesn't have to be on all the different platforms, right? Facebook is all family and friends. Instagram is the mesh point. LinkedIn is the more personal. You can have different tones of voice, but they're all Rob. They're all authentically me. None of it is a fake version of me. It's just what I want to show you at what time to leverage that.
And also leaning into that particular platform.
Exactly. Because each platform has its own unique, vibe and feel. And, I said something earlier about, it doesn't matter as long as, people are engaging and you feel good about the content you're posting. If there's people out there that are saying, a lot of people come to me and we talk about this and they're like, well, Rob, I do want to be a person of influence / influencer. And I'm like, cool. Well, in that case, the only number you should care about is reach, right? When you post a reel, are you getting 200, 500? Is it growing? How many impressions did you get on your LinkedIn post? Cool. Your LinkedIn post has 10 engagements, but it was seen over 4,000 times. That's amazing. That's where you start. We're so quick to say, well, I don't have 100 likes and 100 comments. Who the F cares? If you're early and you're growing, start with impressions first. Are people seeing? And as time goes, you should see that the number of people seeing it go up. As that number goes up, the number of likes should start going up. And the number of comments should start going up. If people are seeing your stuff and your likes and comments do not continue to grow, there's two things that are an issue that you should be looking at. One, the content is not resonating, especially with your current following. So you might need to look at, okay, do I need to change my content? Or two, you have the right content for the wrong network and you need to do some purging on your network. So if you are, so I just want to put that out there because that's usually where people challenge me on, right? Is, well, if that's what I want, cool. You can also go to TikTok and you can see everyone out there on TikTok and Instagram Reels saying, here's how you can make 7 figures in 30 days and grow your account from 1 to 250. Cool. Do all the trends and dances. And then when you try to start talking about the shit you really care about, it's going to fall on deaf ears because you built a network on bullshit and now you try to talk real shit. Doesn't work. So I just want to take that step back. If you do want to create like an influencer lifestyle, person of influence profile, those are the metrics you should be still looking at early. And that's what you should be judging yourself on, not exactly likes and comments. Because if you get into the game of likes and comments, then you're putting yourself into a very negative, dark place that it's just not going to be good for your mental health and you'll burn out tomorrow. And when you create content that you're not passionate about, you'll eventually burn out because it gets exhausting. Like I don't ever have an issue creating content. Mostly sometimes just comes down to time, but I have enough content to talk about. I love doing it because there's more to say and there's more to talk about because it's what I'm passionate about. And sometimes my takes change. Sometimes I'm like, hey, I said this, but now it's really this. So you need to really understand too, there's a lot of people out there that their job isn't their passion. Their job feeds their passions. And this is why that personal, professional, and leading into your profile is important. I have a couple of friends who work for a large financial institution. They're like, hey, Rob, I don't love what I do every day, but I enjoy going to the office. It's a good work environment. I make good money and it's a good schedule and it allows me to do what I really love, which is X. How would I do my profile? Like, great. Your social kind of personal profile should be X, the thing that you love. Your personal could talk a little bit about that, but you could also talk about how your job feeds other passions. And that's how you tie it together. You don't have to be like, oh, just because you're an underwriter at a financial institution, like, what are you going to talk about? oh, the process that I do on home run. No, one thing I love about working as an underwriter and seeing how this works in the back end is I get to watch people find homes of their dreams. And while doing that, I actually get to create a career that allows me to go travel. And I could do it from anywhere. And so that I like this XYZ. And so this becomes the bigger thing you talk about. And you could talk about how your job presents that. If you're an underwriter, you're not going to talk about underwriting and trying to create a following on, LinkedIn or Instagram, right? But you could talk about how your job as an underwriter feeds you and feeds your passion to be a real estate investor or travel the world and look at architecture, for starting a blog about homes and home decor and interior design, all these different things.
Right.
Sorry, tangent there, but
no. But that's so important. The blending of our the different aspects of who we are. It's so important.
And I want to point this out because I was going to grab, when I wrote this, it was supposed to be 60,000 words. It's 29. It's 99 pages. It's an hour and a half read if you're a decent reader, probably 2, 3 if you're slow. If you're really fast, maybe an hour. And out there are tons of playbooks. And here's how to go from 0 to whatever in 90 days. I don't know if I can cuss on this, but the first line of this book is the only time I do this, but I said, this is not a fucking playbook. If you're looking to get from 0 to 1 million followers, this is not it. If you're looking to drive authentic engagement, create a value-added network, and drive real relationships that lead to growth, opportunity, and partnerships, this is the book for you. Each one of us out there has an impressive journey because it is ours. Only we walk it. And if you want to maximize your personal and professional brand and create a value-added network, it's not about having the biggest or being an influencer or being a thought leader. It's about, when you go on there, do you know why you're there? Do you have an engaged community that you can interact with? And are you doing things to create real relationships? There are people that are on my board of advisors that I've never met in person, that are some of the closest people to me that I met during the pandemic because of this. There are jobs and people that I've worked with and, clients that I've worked with that I've met, that I've never met, that I've worked with that are from all over the world because of social. And they're working with me because they saw content or they got introduced, they like what they saw, and they wanted to work with me. We never had a chance to meet because travel was shut down. It didn't matter, right? That's what building a personal brand, building a value-added network, and mastering it with authenticity and intentionality is all about. And I wrote this book specifically, and I talk about things like this specifically. Everyone's like, well, Rob, I want like concrete step 1, 2, 3. And it's like, go find a playbook if that's what you want. And that playbook might work for you, but you know what those playbooks do? They only work for like a third of the people, because a third of them aren't committed. A third of them have the wrong types of journeys for that playbook, and like a third of them are like the committed and the right kind of ICP of that playbook. There's 100 million ways to grow a following. There's 100 million ways to do these things. But there's only one way to do it authentically you, and that's the way that you want to do it, and the way that you can curate it to grow a business. Some of the people that I know that are most successful, that have 5, 10, $15 million books of business, aren't thought leaders. They're not the ones that you see posting with 1,000 likes and 500 comments. They might post and get 50, but they have a value-added network. They engage a lot. They're the ones that you're like always seeing commenting, and they have great networks, and they've spent time curating that so well that things happen.
Love it.
That's what the book's about. That's why I talk like the way I do, in this frame of what I feel like it means to build your network, and why there's so many different examples and the ways to think about it, and no one way is right for anybody.
And we'll make sure that the link to Social Soul is in the show notes too, so everybody can go out and get a copy of it.
Please, that's hugely appreciate that.
So Rob, with that, I just have 4 final questions for you. Okay, first one, what's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
Show up and honor commitments. It's a big lesson. So I recently just lost my grandpa, and one of the things I always remember that he kind of taught was that you need to honor commitments that you say and to show up, and that has always stuck with me. And that if I have something that I need to have done, I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure it out. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to figure it out. It's really easy to be like, oh, I forgot, or oh, this, or oh, that. And, there's been times in my life that I've lost that. And it's one of those things that when I started my own business, I realized that you have to show up.
Mm-hmm.
When you show up for people and you honor commitments and you do what you say you're going to do, it makes a huge difference in life and in business. So I think that's just like very real for like a lot of reasons. And the fact that we just recently lost him. So, I think that one has just been on my mind a lot recently.
Share with us one thing on your bucket list.
We were just talking about this the other day. I was just talking about this today. I honestly, I'll do a personal and professional bucket list.
Okay.
Because my professional bucket list feeds the personal one. I started a podcast called The Necessities of Entrepreneurship with the idea that I want to interview somebody from every state in the US and every country in the world, so that entrepreneurship comes from everywhere, which has led me to, I think it's very ambitious to visit every country in the world, but I want to visit every continent and not just visit, right? And I talk about this all the time. I had the opportunity to live for 2 years in Italy, travel to 55 cities, 13 countries. What I realized is there's a difference between going on vacation and immersing yourself. And whenever we'd go on holiday, we try not to get a hotel unless we have to. We get an Airbnb, we research areas of the city. The first thing we do is we do a tour guide, a free tour, walking tour. Those are the first things we do when we get to a new city. And then we ask that tour, okay, hey, we're here for 3 days. What are 3 local restaurants, 3 bars, and 3 things we should do that most people won't do? Like, don't give me the freaking, Empire State Building, top of the rock. Like, it's New York. I know those things. What are 3 things I don't know about? And so that's what I want to do. And that's a big thing on my bucket list. And that's also a pro tip for all you out there. When you travel, get those free walking tours and then ask those 3 questions and watch how much more fun you have on vacation.
I'm going to keep that in mind. Okay. When the toy companies finally get around to making an action figure of you, what 2 accessories will it come with?
A man bun and a beard. Like, I feel like the man bun will have like, be like, MacGyver, right? Like, it's the man bun that comes out and has like a screwdriver and everything. So it's like a toy. Like, we're going to teach our kids how to be more hands-on. I joke about the beard thing, but I think the other thing would be, I talk a lot. I think it would be kind of like a motivational, like, it's like, the Buzz Lightyear type thing, but with actually like motivational weird sayings. So you have like the motivation and like the MacGyver thing coming out of the man bun. That'd be the 2 accessories.
And the last one, how do people find you?
Yeah, I'll give you the links. I have a Beacons page, beacons.page/Rob Napoli, that has access to everything. I find all the platforms, come on all the socials, all the digits and details. LinkedIn, it's /Rob Nap. Just put in Rob Napoli, yellow picture, man bun, you can't miss it. And then I said Instagram is my favorite, so rise_up.robnap. But you'll have all that for the show notes. And I always say, if you hear this and you have a burning question or want to say something, drop me a line. Let me know you heard me on the show, and I'm always here to chat about it. Like, I'm serious when I say, hey, reach out to me, connect. Like, I'm going to say hello back. I'm going to engage with you, and always happy to answer further questions and chat with anyone who is part of your audience. And I really appreciate your audience who's sticking out to this point right now for listening to me go on random tangents and talk with you here today. It's really fun.
And thank you for sticking through all our little bloops and blips and all kinds of technical mishaps.
Well, that's just a me thing. Like the most random things will happen to me in the most random times. And I've just learned to kind of deal with it, go on. I was actually doing a training with like 23 people. In the middle of it, I just like froze. And I was like freaking out. Like I was like, literally I had a big freak out moment. And I was like, calm down. Dialed in from my phone. I was like, hey, I know I'm supposed to be leading this right now. Having a slight issues. What I want you to do is this. And I had them go like around introducing each other to give myself 10 minutes. So I have my phone on and I'm troubleshooting and ended up working out. Like just did. You just got to take that step back and take that deep breath. So I'm used to it. I always kind of laugh and love about it because you know what? It always makes for a great story.
It does.
And if you want to get good at creating your value and you don't know what to talk about, just tell personal stories because we all have some great ones. So when you have good stories, share about the lessons learned. You can't go wrong. It's great content.
That's true. All right. Thank you so much for being here, Rob.
You bet. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. Once again, I'm Marlana Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Please comment, like, or share this episode, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. For more information on how I can help you create your iconic image, visit marlanasemenza.com.